It was still dark when Maya Johnson stepped out of her small wooden house at the edge of town. The cold morning air bit against her cheeks, and the faint mist hung low over the road. Her shoes were worn thin, the soles cracked, but she tied the laces tightly anyway. She pulled her faded jacket closer and began to walk. 20 miles. That was the distance she traveled every single day, to and from work. The road stretched endlessly ahead, silent except for the soft crunch of her steps on gravel. Sometimes she hummed softly to keep herself company. Sometimes she just listened to the rhythm of her breathing. The town still slept as she passed by the fields and small farms. She would often see the same stray dog following her for a while before turning back. To everyone else it looked like madness, a woman walking 20 miles a day just to reach a diner job. But for Maya, it was love that kept her feet moving. Her mother, Evelyn Johnson, was all she had. The older woman had a weak heart and needed expensive medicine every month. Maya worked long shifts at the diner just to make sure her mother's prescriptions never ran out. She had once owned a small car, an old blue sedan that carried both of them to work and hospital visits. But when her mother's condition got worse, Maya made a choice. She sold the car, used the money for treatment, and began walking. Every morning she left home before sunrise and returned after sunset. No complaints, no excuses. Only tired feet and a quiet strength that kept her going. One particular morning, as she reached the halfway point near the old bridge, a police car passed by slowly. Officer Daniel Harris, a local patrol officer, noticed her through his window. He had seen her before. Same road, same tired steps, same determined face. At first he assumed she was just exercising, maybe training for something. But as days turned into weeks, he realized she was doing this every single day, no matter the weather. He started wondering about her story. Who was she? Where was she going so early every morning? Why didn't she take a bus or drive? The thought stayed in his mind longer than he expected. Later that week, during his patrol, Officer Harris saw her again, this time in the rain. Her jacket was soaked, her shoes splashed mud with every step, but she didn't stop. She just lowered her head and kept walking. Something inside him stirred. It wasn't pity, it was admiration mixed with concern. There was something deeply human about the way she moved, like every step was an act of love and sacrifice. Meanwhile, at the diner, Maya arrived just before her shift as usual. She greeted her manager with a smile, tied her apron, and started brewing coffee for the early customers. Her co-workers often joked about how she was always on foot, but no one really knew how far she came. She laughed it off, never telling anyone the full story. During breaks, she would sometimes sit near the kitchen window, rubbing her sore feet quietly. She didn't complain. She just looked out at the sky, thinking about her mother resting at home, waiting for her to come back. That thought gave her strength. That evening, Officer Harris saw her again, walking home in the dark. The streetlights flickered, and cars rushed past without slowing down. She didn't have reflective clothing or even a flashlight, just a small phone in her pocket and faith that she'd reach home safely. He slowed his patrol car and drove behind her for a while, keeping a safe distance. It wasn't official police work. He just wanted to make sure she made it home unharmed. The more he watched, the more he wanted to know her story. When she finally reached the small house at the edge of town, he saw a dim light flicker through the window. Maya went inside, dropped her bag, and hurried to her mother's bedside. Her mother smiled weakly as Maya knelt beside her, adjusting her blanket and checking her medicine bottles. "You're late, sweetheart," her mother whispered. Maya smiled softly. "Work ran a little long today, Mama, but I'm home now." "You must be tired." Walking all that way again, Maya shook her head gently. "It's okay. As long as you're feeling better, it's worth it." Outside, Officer Harris sat in his car for a few more seconds, watching through the rain-speckled windshield. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but the sight of the small home and the warmth between them made something tighten in his chest. When he finally drove away, one thought echoed in his mind. There's more to this woman's story, and I need to find out what it is. He didn't know it yet, but that small decision, to follow her, to learn her story, would soon change both of their lives forever. The next morning, Officer Daniel Harris woke up early, earlier than usual. He couldn't get the image of that woman out of his mind. He saw her in his thoughts, walking through the rain, head down, carrying the weight of the world in silence. Something told him there was more behind her quiet strength, something he needed to understand. So he made a decision. That morning, instead of taking his normal patrol route, he parked near the old bridge, the one Maya always crossed before sunrise. The sky was still gray, the air cool and damp. Mist hung over the road like a curtain. At 5:15 a.m., there she was, Maya. Her small frame appeared out of the fog, walking steadily, her shoes splashing through puddles. She carried a small tote bag, the same one she brought every day. There was no hesitation in her step. She didn't notice the patrol car parked a short distance away. Officer Harris waited a moment, then quietly started his engine and began following her from a safe distance. For nearly 2 hours, she walked. Past the fields, past the gas station, past the houses where lights were just beginning to turn on. Not once did she slow down. Finally, she reached the diner, a small, cheerful place on the corner of the main road. The sign above the door flickered with the words, Sunnyside Cafe. She pushed open the door, smiled at her co-workers, and disappeared inside. Harris parked across the street and sat in silence, watching through the window. He saw her serving coffee, wiping tables, greeting customers with a tired but genuine smile. She looked like any other employee, except now he knew the truth. She had already walked 20 miles before her shift even began. Something inside him stirred again. Admiration, sadness, and a strange kind of guilt. How could so many people see her every day and not know? Hours passed. The lunch rush came and went. Still, Maya kept working, moving gracefully between tables, never complaining, never sitting down. When her shift ended late in the afternoon, Harris was still there, waiting quietly. As the sun dipped below the hills, Maya stepped out of the diner and began walking again, this time toward home. Harris followed her car slowly, headlights off. After about 10 miles, he noticed her stop under a broken streetlight. She slipped off her shoes and rubbed her feet carefully. Her face was pale, her legs trembling. Then she pulled something small from her pocket, a photo. Even from a distance, he could see her looking at it for a long time. Harris stepped out of his car and approached slowly, careful not to startle her. When she heard the crunch of gravel under his boots, she turned sharply. "Ma'am," he said softly, raising his hand. "Don't be scared." "It's Officer Harris. I've seen you walking this road many times." Maya hesitated, unsure whether to speak or keep walking. "I'm sorry, officer. I didn't know walking was against the law," she said quietly, trying to smile. He chuckled gently. "No, it's not. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. You walk a long way every day, don't you?" Her expression softened. "Yes, sir. I walk to work and back. It's far, but it's what I have to do." He tilted his head. "You don't have a car?" She looked down at her torn shoes. "I used to. But my mother's medicine costs more than I earn. When her condition got worse, I sold the car so she could keep getting treatment. She's all I have." Harris felt his throat tighten. "You walk this far every day, just to work and care for her?" Maya nodded slowly. "I can't afford to miss a day. If I do, I can't pay for her medicine. It's okay, though. She's getting better now. That's all that matters." Her voice cracked slightly, but she kept her head high. There was no self-pity in her tone, only quiet strength. The officer stood there for a moment, speechless. The air around them felt heavy. Finally, he said softly, "You're a good daughter, Maya." Her eyes filled with tears. "I just do what any daughter would, officer. She took care of me all my life. Now it's my turn." He wanted to help her right there, to drive her home, to give her something, anything. But he knew she wouldn't accept charity easily. She had pride, the kind built from years of struggle and sacrifice. "Let me give you a ride home tonight," he offered gently. "It's dark. You shouldn't walk alone." She hesitated, then nodded with a faint smile. "Thank you. Just this once." During the ride, she looked out the window quietly. The streetlights flickered across her tired face. When they reached her small wooden house, she turned to him and said, "Thank you, officer. But please don't worry about me. I'll be okay." Harris smiled faintly. "You shouldn't have to walk that far to survive, Maya." She nodded. "Maybe, but sometimes you have to walk a long road before life starts to change." As she stepped out and walked up to her house, Harris sat behind the wheel, deep in thought. He looked at the old home, the flickering light inside, and realized This woman wasn't just walking to work. She was walking out of love, out of sacrifice, out of hope. And in that moment, he knew he couldn't just drive away and forget. He was going to do something about it, something that might finally change her life forever. That night, Officer Daniel Harris couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind spinning with thoughts of Maya, the woman who walked 20 miles every single day just to earn enough money to buy her mother's medicine. He kept hearing her words echoing in his head. Sometimes, you have to walk a long road before life starts to change. He knew she didn't expect help. That was the kind of person she was. Strong, humble, proud. But that didn't mean she didn't deserve it. The next morning, as soon as he reached the police station, Daniel shared Maya's story with his fellow officers. "She's been walking for months," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. 20 miles each way, rain or shine, just to take care of her sick mother. The room went quiet. A few of the officers exchanged glances. Officer Ramirez shook his head. "Man, that's unbelievable. Most people wouldn't last a week doing that." "She didn't ask for help?" Another asked. "No," Daniel said softly. "She doesn't complain. She just keeps going." For a few moments, silence hung in the air. Then Daniel took a deep breath and said, "I want to help her." "But not just me, all of us. The whole town. She's been walking alone long enough," everyone nodded. It didn't take long for the plan to take shape. By that afternoon, Daniel had spoken with the diner owner, Mrs. Taylor, who was stunned to hear the full story. "She never said a word," Mrs. Taylor whispered. "She just smiles and works like nothing's wrong. I knew she didn't drive, but I didn't know she was walking that far." Together, they started making calls. The diner staff chipped in first, a few dollars here and there. Then the local mechanic offered to repair any car for free if they could find one for Maya. Word spread quickly through the small town. People who had never even met Maya began stopping by the police station, leaving envelopes, grocery bags, and even spare clothes. By the end of the week, Daniel had gathered enough money to buy a reliable used car, a simple silver sedan in good condition. The local dealership owner, after hearing Maya's story, refused to take full payment. "You're helping a good woman," he said, shaking Daniel's hand. "Consider the rest a donation." The following day, Daniel and a few volunteers washed the car, filled the tank, and placed a bright red bow on the hood. As he stood looking at it in the sunlight, Daniel felt something stir deep in his chest, a quiet pride mixed with joy. That evening, they planned the surprise. Mrs. Taylor called Maya and asked her to stay after her shift for a quick staff meeting. Maya, as always, agreed politely. She had no idea what was waiting outside. When she finished cleaning the tables that night, she noticed the lights outside the diner were brighter than usual. As she stepped through the door, her co-workers began clapping softly. The noise startled her. "What's going on?" she asked, confused. Then she saw Officer Harris walking toward her with a smile. Behind him was the silver car, gleaming under the diner lights, the red bow fluttering gently in the breeze. Maya froze. Her eyes widened. For a few seconds she couldn't speak. "Is this for me?" she whispered. Daniel nodded, smiling warmly. "Maya, the people in this town know about your story now. They know how far you've walked. For your job, for your mother, for love. And we decided it's time someone walked for you." Her lips trembled. Tears filled her eyes, but she tried to hold them back. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. "Yes, you do," Mrs. Taylor said, stepping forward. "You've been taking care of everyone else. Let us take care of you for once." The crowd clapped again, and Maya covered her face with her hands as tears rolled down her cheeks. I don't know what to say," she managed to whisper between sobs. Daniel smiled gently. "You already said it every time you walked that road. Every step you took was a message, one of love, strength, and sacrifice. This is just the world's way of saying thank you." He handed her the keys. Maya looked down at them in disbelief, then looked up at the faces surrounding her, her co-workers, the officers, strangers she barely knew. Every single one of them was smiling, proud and teary-eyed. "I don't know how to repay you," she said softly. "You already have," Daniel replied. "You reminded us what real courage looks like." As she stepped into the car, her hands trembled. She touched the steering wheel gently, as if afraid it might disappear. The crowd cheered again as the engine started. For the first time in months, Maya didn't have to walk home in the dark. She rolled down the window and looked at Daniel. "Thank you," she said, her voice full of emotion. He nodded. "Just promise me one thing, Maya. Keep walking, but this time toward your dreams." She smiled through her tears. "I will, officer. I will." As she drove away, the headlights glowing in the night, the entire crowd stood there watching, silent, emotional, inspired, because that night, one woman's long, painful journey finally turned into a road of hope. Morning sunlight poured through the thin curtains of the small wooden house. For the first time in a long while, Maya Johnson didn't wake up to darkness or dread the long, lonely road ahead. Instead, her car keys rested on the bedside table, shining softly in the light. Her mother, Evelyn, lay beside her, smiling weakly. "You got home early last night," she said. "How did that happen?" Maya's face brightened, her eyes filling again as she gently held her mother's hand. "Mama." Something beautiful happened. She told her everything, about the officer who had followed her, the people who came together, and the surprise waiting outside the diner. When she finished, Evelyn covered her mouth with trembling hands. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. "You see, God never forgets those who walk with faith." Later that morning, Maya opened the front door and stepped outside. The car sat in the driveway, the red bow still fluttering in the breeze. For a moment, she just stood there, letting the reality sink in. The same woman who used to walk 20 miles a day was now holding the keys to a new beginning. She placed her hand on the hood and whispered softly, "Thank you. That day, instead of leaving before dawn." Maya had breakfast with her mother. They shared laughter, real laughter, for the first time in months. When it was time to leave, Evelyn waved from the porch as Maya drove away, tears of joy in her eyes as she pulled onto the road, the same one she had walked countless times before. Memories flooded her mind, the blisters, the rain, the pain, the loneliness. But now, everything looked different. The road that once represented struggle now shimmered with hope. When she reached the diner, her coworkers cheered and hugged her again. Customers clapped when they saw her. Her story had already spread across the town and beyond. Within days, the local newspaper published an article titled, "Woman Walks 20 Miles to Work Until One Kind Officer Changes Her Life." Soon the story went viral online. People from other towns, even other states, began sending letters, gifts, and donations. Some said her story reminded them of their mothers. Others said it gave them courage to keep going through their own hard times. But Maya didn't seek fame. Every time someone praised her, she simply said, "I didn't walk for attention. I walked for love." A few weeks later, Maya visited the police station. She carried a small wooden box wrapped in brown paper. Officer Harris greeted her warmly. "Maya, how are you adjusting?" She smiled brightly. "Still learning to get used to driving instead of walking." They both laughed. Then she handed him the box. "This is for you," she said. He looked surprised. "What's this?" "Just something small. From me and my mother." He carefully unwrapped the paper. Inside was a framed photograph, a picture of Maya and her mother standing beside the silver car, smiling. On the bottom of the frame, engraved in small letters, were the words, "Kindness walks further than any mile." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Daniel's eyes grew misty as he placed a hand over his heart. "This means more than you know," he said quietly. Maya smiled. "No, officer." "You mean more than you know." Weeks turned into months, and life slowly returned to normal. But something in the town had changed forever. Inspired by Maya's story, the community started a new project called The Walk of Hope. It was a local charity that helped struggling workers with transportation, medical needs, and financial aid. At the launch event, Officer Harris stood beside Maya as the mayor gave a short speech. "This all began," the mayor said, "because one woman refused to give up, and one officer refused to look away." When it was Maya's turn to speak, she stood at the microphone, nervous at first. Then she looked out at the crowd, families, officers, children, and her voice grew steady. "I used to walk 20 miles every day," she began, "and every step felt like it would never end. But along the way I learned something. Sometimes the road we walk is not meant to break us. It's meant to prepare us for the people we're going to meet." She paused, tears shining in her eyes. "I met one of those people. Officer Harris didn't just follow me. He saw me, and that made all the difference. The crowd erupted in applause. After the event, Maya returned home and parked her car in front of her little house. The sky above was glowing orange with sunset. She sat quietly for a while, looking at the long road that once defined her struggle. Her mother came outside and stood beside her. "You know," Evelyn said softly, "I used to worry that you'd lose hope out there on that road." Maya smiled gently. "No, Mama. Hope was the only thing that kept me walking." They stood together in silence, watching the sun disappear behind the horizon. No distance is too far when you're walking for love.